Hello guys and welcome to UK Foundations. I'm Uthara Adithi and today we'll be completing the life processes chapter with the long question and answers, which is the only part left. So let's start without any further ado. First question, explain the process of nutrition in amoeba. So the process of nutrition in amoeba is heterotrophic. It follows heterotrophic mode of nutrition. In that we know that there are 5 steps that takes place: ingestion, digestion. The order is also important, and the 5 steps, if you mention these 5 steps as a subheading, it's going to help you to gain marks. Ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, right? Absorption, assimilation, and excretion. That's the 5th point, right? So it's going to be excretion, or you can also tell it as egestion. Okay, so go for egestion, egestion. So it can be ingestion, it's going to be ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and egestion. So through the process of ingestion, the food is going to be intaken. So let's draw a rough diagram of an amoeba. Okay, so this is going to be the nucleus of the amoeba. This is the nucleus, this is the cytoplasm, and let's assume that this is the food particle. So firstly, it's going to extend its finger-like projections called as, what is it? It's called as pseudopodia. So it's going to extend like this, okay? And the food particle is going to be here. So this takes place in the first process called as ingestion. Through the process of digestion, what takes place? It's going to create a food vacuole. I'll explain what is it. It's going to create something like this. But the food is entrapped here. Of course, the nucleus is also present. So the food is entrapped. Now here there are certain enzymes that are going to be secreted in the digestion of the food. So yeah, it needs to break down the food, right? So that takes place in digestion, and this hole that is created here, can you see it? Right, it's like going to trap the food. So this hole is called as a food vacuole. Okay, so we have seen certain terms here: nucleus, cytoplasm, this is the food particle, this is pseudopodia, and this is a food vacuole. Now the food is going to be absorbed, so the body is going to intake the food, it's going to engulf the food, and yeah, it enters into the body of the amoeba. Okay, so just to show its presence, we'll just take this one. Okay, that's the food, it has entered now. Now the process of assimilation takes place. What is assimilation? You'll get some energy from the food, right? The food that is intaken, some energy is taken. So from that energy, it's not simply going to be stored. Some part will be stored, but most of them is going to be utilized for other processes. So such utilization is called as assimilation. So the food will be utilized for other processes. It can be for anything, for its movement, for in humans, if you take in the case of breathing, for respiration, and all of that energy is involved. So that will take place. And now through the process of egestion, the food is removed out of the body and leading to this. So you can just draw something like this. This is the waste product that is going to be excreted from the body, from the cytoplasm. So the waste product moves to the surface of the cytoplasm and it's removed from the body, and this is the entire process of nutrition in amoeba. So if you write this, if you draw the diagram, if you mention these 5 points and give a little explanation under each of them, you're going to get it. Okay, now describe the alimentary canal of a man. Alimentary canal of a man, we know, right? Alimentary canal is right from the mouth, the buccal cavity, till the anus. So let's see that with some picture. Yeah, so this is the picture I've got. Let's see. Okay, so maybe, yeah. Okay, so this is the picture. So first the food enters the body through the buccal cavity. Okay, I don't want to write here. Yep, so that's enough. So it enters through the buccal cavity. You know what are the enzymes that are secreted? The salivary amylase from the salivary glands. right? So that will happen, and you can write the functions of them. Salivary amylase helps in the breakdown of starch or the carbohydrates. Now the food moves down through the esophagus. So it's right here. You'll have esophagus. There are two different spellings. You can mention the either of them. There's ESO, PHEGUS, or OESO. So you can mention the either of ones. Now the food enters into the stomach. And yeah, while explaining about esophagus, you should write about the peristaltic movement as well. The rhythmic, the rhythmic movement of the esophagus to push down the food is called as peristaltic movement. Now the food enters into the stomach, where you can find HCl, mucus and pepsin. Mention their functions, as I've already mentioned a lot of time in the previous videos. Now the food enters into the small intestine, and before that there will be here a sphincter muscle will be there, which will like regulate the amount of food passing into this small intestine. Now that time liver and the pancreas come into play. Pancreas secrete trypsin and pepsin. Trypsin and lipase. Pepsin is in the stomach, right? Trypsin and lipase, and liver is going to emulsify fat through the bile juice, which is stored in the gallbladder. Okay. Now the food enters into the small intestine. It passes. It has the action of intestinal juices as well as villi. Villi helps in the absorption of food. It has increased surface area. All of that. Now food enters directly into the large intestine, passes through the way out through the anus. In large intestine, what happens? In the large intestine, the final absorption of water and all of that takes place. Mainly water absorption. But yeah, the feces and all of the waste product passes. It's stored in the rectum and removed out of the anus. Okay. So I hope that this one was clear. Yep. Alimentary canal of man. Done. Next, explain the process of breathing in man. So I have another beautiful diagram to do that. Let's do it with this one, right? So yeah, we have the picture of a man who's going to be explaining us about the process of breathing. I hope you know the differences between breathing and respiration, right? Breathing is just the intake of oxygen and the exhalation of carbon dioxide, while respiration is like the breakdown of food in the cellular level to obtain energy out of it. Okay, so the energy is obtained in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Okay, so that takes place. Now here, respiration, there are two phenomena occurring here, inhalation and exhalation. In inhalation, what are the steps that take place? So first the air enters through the nostrils, right? So what are the things that takes place? The lungs and the ribs are going to expand. Their volume is going to increase so that it's going to fill up with air, right? So its volume is going to increase. Okay, and the diaphragm will flatten. It's like this, right? It's kind of curved, but then later it's going to flatten like this. It's going to become flat like this. Where do I represent it? Like this, it's going to be flattening. Okay, and the pressure of the lungs, the pressure inside the lungs is going to decrease. Yes, it's going to decrease because if the pressure inside the lungs are low and outside it's high, that's when the air can enter inside. Am I right or wrong? Correct, right? So that happens in inhalation. During exhalation, all of the reverse phenomenon will occur. The ribs and the lungs are going to contract, or they're going to relax, and the pressure inside the lungs will increase. So if the pressure inside is more and outside it's less, the air will flow from the lungs to the surroundings, to the environment. So that's the thing that happens. And what happens to the diaphragm? The diaphragm will relax, so it's going to become the C shape again, this kind of inverted U shape, right? It goes to that shape again. Okay, so you should also mention that in inhalation it's the intake of oxygen, during exhalation it's the removal of carbon dioxide. So that's what takes place. I think this is also understood. Next, explain the importance of soil for a plant growth. So we know that soil is very important, but how is it important for a plant's growth? What are the things that takes place here? Plants will provide the base. It's like the basic thing that you require for a plant growth. It requires some a stage for its growth, right? So that platform is given by the soil, through from where the roots are gonna penetrate through the ground and hold up the soil as firm as possible, and then there's going to be an upward growth of the plant, and all of that takes place. Number 1. Number 2 is nutrients. There are many nutrients that are required for the plants, right, for the plant growth, which are present. The minerals is better. Minerals are present in the soil. Number 3 is it contains water. The most important thing is water. Even in the absence of irrigation, soil can provide like the necessary amount of water to the plant growth. And finally, it has microorganisms. So this microorganisms, like if we talk specifically about one, for nitrogen fixation, some bacteria are present, so they can do the nitrogen fixation, and that is also very important for such plants like pulses, for the growth of pulses and all of that. So yeah, okay, so this is also done. Draw the diagram of alimentary canal of a man and label the following parts: mouth, esophagus, stomach and intestine. This is like a very easy question now for us. We can draw the alimentary canal, and mouth, you know, right, the opening. Esophagus is mouth is followed, then after mouth it comes the esophagus, then after esophagus, yes, of course, stomach, and finally the intestine will come. So you have to mention, they have only given intestine, they didn't specifically tell small or large. You can mention both of them, and yeah, I think it's easy, right? Now, how do carbohydrates, proteins and fats get digested in human beings? So how are they digested? You can mention where they are digested also. Firstly, for carbohydrates digestion, actually it takes place in 2 different places. First is in the mouth. Okay, it takes place in the mouth as well, and in the intestine as well. In the intestine, it's through the intestinal juices, in intestine, specifically in the small intestine, okay. And in the mouth, it's in this with the help of the salivary amylase, which converts the starch or the carbohydrates firstly into the simple sugar. Okay, that simple sugar will be converted into glucose in the intestine. Okay, through the intestinal juices, it's going to be converted into glucose. I think it's clear. In mouth, it's going to be converted into simple sugar, which one? The carbohydrates. And in intestine, it's going to be converted into glucose. So the final form of carbohydrates is glucose. Okay, this is done. Next, protein digestion. Proteins, we know there are 2 different places for its digestion as well. Let me write it as one only. First place is in the stomach, and the second one is in the intestine. So you get to know how much important the intestine is, because most of the digestion takes place in intestine, right? In stomach, with the help of pepsin, the proteins are they are broken down or they are digested partially. Okay, and finally in the intestine, by the action of the pancreatic juices, which is trypsin. So we have pepsin and we have trypsin. With the help of trypsin, and also just for an information, chymotrypsin enzymes will also act. These 2 are going to act to break down proteins to form amino acids. So the final form of carbohydrates is glucose. That of proteins is amino acids, right? And fats, if we see, it's going to take the breakdown of fat is like mostly in the small intestine itself. First, it's going to be emulsified by the bile juices. We know that emulsification of fat is breakdown of large fat globules into simpler, smaller fat globules, and that takes place with the help of the bile juice stored in the gallbladder. And second thing is, by the action of lipase, fats are going to get converted into, let me write it here, fatty acids, right? Fatty acids and glycerol. Don't think it's something new, because these are mentioned in your NCERT. Fatty acids and glycerols in the it's mentioned in the NCERT itself. So yeah, okay. So how they are digested is also explained. What is their final final forms is also being explained. So yeah, we are done. Next, 39. Explain the mechanism of photosynthesis. So yeah, for this what you have to do, I'll just tell. You have to firstly write the the equation of photosynthesis. Before that, you can add the information that plants are autotrophic organisms which can prepare their own food through the process of photosynthesis, right? So that's the introduction that you can give, and under that you can write it in the verbal form, that carbon dioxide and carbon dioxide in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll with water is going to get converted into glucose, and then oxygen and water again. And now you can write the equation. Let's write the equation now here. 6 CO2 plus 12 H2O in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll forms what? Forms C6H12O6 plus 6O2 plus 6H2O. This is the equation. So this equation is very, 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 very important. Okay, so let's write this, and then following this, the mechanism. The main thing that's asked is mechanism for photosynthesis. So the mechanism that are involved, we know the 3 steps, right? According to the Ncert, they have given 3 steps that are involved. Firstly is the absorption of light energy by the chlorophyll, number 1. Number 2 is conversion of light energy into chemical energy, and under that, next point which is given is the breakdown of water to form hydrogen and oxygen, right? That's in second point. Final point is reduction of carbon dioxide into glucose. So carbon dioxide will be converted into glucose, and yeah, if you mention these and give the points, it's sufficient, right? Yep. So I think we are done with this one as well. Okay. Next, explain the 3 pathways for the breakdown in living organisms. Breakdown of glucose in living organisms. Breakdown of glucose in living organisms. So I have the chart for that. Let's go with it. Okay. Right. So this is the picture. I think it's so this is the picture. Let it be like this. So glucose, a 6 carbon molecule, is converted into pyruvate, a 3 carbon molecule, plus energy, to be noted, plus energy in the cytoplasm. Okay, so this is the first thing that takes place. So glucose, a 6 carbon molecule, is converted into pyruvate, a 3 carbon molecule, plus energy in the cytoplasm. Now pyruvate can undergo 3 different steps for its breakdown: in the absence of oxygen, in the lack of oxygen, and in the presence of oxygen. In the absence and in the lack, it's called as anaerobic respiration. So absence of oxygen in yeast is called as fermentation. Okay, so this takes place to form ethanol, C2H5OH, carbon dioxide, and energy. Ethanol is C2H5OH, C2H5, I think it's too big. Wait. No, it's not visible. Okay, C2H5OH, it's an alcohol. Ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy is the products that are formed. Now pyruvate in the lack of oxygen takes place in the muscle cells, where lactic acid, which is a 3 carbon molecule, and energy is produced. So that leads to cramps. When we do excessive workout suddenly in a new day, right, in some random day, then there will be lack of oxygen in our muscle cells, which are going to be forming lactic acid and energy, which basically pyruvate is converted into these. Okay, next, finally, in the presence of oxygen in mitochondria, carbon dioxide, water, and energy is formed. Okay, this is the aerobic form of respiration, which is usually taking place in our body. Of course, these two are expected in our body, and this is expected in the body of the yeast, right? Okay, so yeah, that's the thing. I think this is also done, very easy. Now, describe the flow of blood through the heart of human beings. Right, we have to be explaining the flow of blood. Let me do it now with a picture. Today we have a lot of pictures though. So I want you to observe the picture once. Okay, just look onto the parts that are given. We have aorta, okay, and we have our vena cava. We have left atrium, left ventricle, right atrium, right ventricle. We have certain valves mentioned, tricuspid and the bicuspid valve. Bicuspid is not mentioned here. Okay, but we know, right? Tri and bicuspid valves are there. Okay, so let's see what's the process that's taking place. First, the oxygenated blood from the lungs reaches the left atrium through the pulmonary vein. It's here, pulmonary vein. Okay, so the blood will enter here, pulmonary vein, into the left atrium. So first the left atrium is going to relax while it's going to be filling. Okay, so it's going to get filled, so it's going to relax nicely. Now the blood needs to be pumped from the left atrium to the left ventricle. So it's going to contract. It's like, you know, a balloon full of water. If you press the balloon, that's when the water will release out of the balloon, right? So that's what happens here. Left atrium is going to contract nicely for the movement of the blood from the atrium to the ventricle through the bicuspid valve. So the valves present here are bicuspid valve. Now the left ventricle needs to pump the blood to different parts of the body, and that takes place with the help of aorta. So we saw pulmonary vein and now aorta. Blood enters like this, follow the cursor, it comes here, it goes through this and to different parts of the body. Now aorta branches to form capillaries. Okay, aorta is going to branch out to form capillaries, which are basically like one cell thick, so that each and every organ gets sufficient amount of oxygen, because oxygenated blood is very, very important. Now the deoxygenated blood is going to pass through the vena cava. So you will find two types of vena cava, superior and the inferior. What is the difference is, superior collects all the deoxygenated blood from the top parts of the body above, and inferior vena cava from the bottom parts of the body. Now they are going to collect and come to the right atrium. Okay, right atrium. And now from the right atrium, again it's going to first relax, then contract, and here we saw bicuspid valve in the left side. In the right side we will see tricuspid valve. There will be tricuspid valve. Can you note it? Yeah. So it's going to enter into right ventricle. Now the deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle needs to reach to the lungs, and that takes place with the help of pulmonary artery. Right here. So the blood will go like this back to the lungs, and the carbon dioxide is removed from the body. That's it. That's the process that takes place. Okay. I hope it was clear. Last question, and we'll be done with life processes finally. Describe the process of urine formation in the kidneys. The last part of our chapter as well, right? The question is, describe the process of urine formation in the kidney. So let's see two pictures for that. First is the nephrons. This is a very important picture. Nephrons. Nephrons are the structural and the functional units of kidneys, the final part of the kidneys. So what takes place is, they are all very thin walled blood capillaries, okay, and they all contain a cup shaped end called as Bowman's capsule. The cup, here it is, you can see, right, the Bowman's capsule cup shaped end. What takes place here is the initial filtrate, the blood, not the blood, the urine. The initial filtrate first enters through the Bowman's capsule. Okay, so you need to mention that it's a cup shaped end of the nephrons. Now the initial filtrate will enter into that, and what happens first, the four things that are going to be absorbed are glucose, amino acids, salts, and a large amount of water. It's going to be absorbed immensely nicely. It's going to be absorbed. Okay, and water absorption will depend on how much excess water is there in the body. If in the body there's very less amount of water, then the body seeks for more water. And suppose the urine contains so many harmful waste, it's very harmful that it needs to be immediately removed, then more urine is produced. That's the thing. Then no much absorption will take place at that point of time. So this is the thing. Now, after that absorption, the excess of water, like all of that, is going to be passing through. So that's important over here. Now we move on to this picture, the human excretory system, for the same question. Yes, now the urine, I think it's kind of blur. Anyways, so the urine is going to be passing, it's done, the kidneys works are done, it passes through the ureter. So pair of ureters are there, very important, pair of ureters, 2 ureters are there. It passes through that and enters into the urinary bladder, which is like a muscular organ. So it is under the nervous control. Okay, so it's under your wish that you want to urinate or not. You can hold the urine for a large amount of time, but it's not advisable, it's not good actually. Now so when it gives you the urge to urinate, now it is removed out of the body through the urethra, and that's done. That's the process of the urine formation and its excretion as well. And yeah, this question is also done. Okay guys, so we are done with this chapter. Next we'll be starting a new chapter, maybe probably under physics. So hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you, and definitely spread the key of success, spread knowledge. Thank you.